Hey everyone, and welcome back to Remember This Tech. In today's episode I'm going to be building a $150 gaming PC, or rather I'm taking a workstation PC that I snagged off of eBay and I'm going to be repurposing it into a entry-level 1080p gaming system, and perhaps you could do the same as well. Depends on what kind of deals you snag out there, and you have to really shop around. Now, what am I going to be using for this build today? The HP Z240 workstation. Yes, it's a rather unassuming box. I paid $99 US for this, and inside it comes with a Xeon E3 1230 V5 CPU with 4 cores, 8 threads, and a base clock of 3.4 gigahertz, boosting up to 3.8. Now, this is kind of equivalent to the Intel i7 6700 CPU, give or take. This particular motherboard is 1155 socket, and it can take 6th and 7th gen Intel CPUs, and even some of these motherboards can be flashed to accept 8th gen CPUs. Now, what did my system come with? Now again, I say you can get some of these HP Z240s for cheaper, like 40-50 bucks, but they might not come with a lot of things in there, so you really got to shop around the various conditions and their generations, their revision models. This one was pretty clean when I got it. Not much dust at all. It said it was refurbed, but you never know. It came with 32 gig of DDR4 ECC memory, and there's 4 banks on here, so that means you can slap in another 32 gig of RAM without breaking a sweat. It runs at around 2133 megahertz. Here's the stats up here for the RAM. It came with an Intel SSD. It's rather old, but it is a 180 gig SSD. And it came with a 500 gig SATA Seagate drive as well. It also comes with the Nvidia Quadro Pro K600 video card. It's rather anemic, so we won't be using that in today's build. Not only that, but I'll zoom in, and it has a NVMe slot on this board. But look, this right here, right there, you can see that's an NVMe slot. The fact that you get a NVMe slot on this board is a bonus, a huge bonus. It means you're not limited to the standard SATA 3 SSD speeds. Great, right? 80 plus platinum power supply, USB 3.0 ports, and a DVD-RW in the format of a laptop drive, DVD-RW drive. Now, you may be thinking, well, how are you going to get this into the entry-level gaming PC? Well, we're going to try 2 cards in this system. One of them is going to be the SOYO RX 580 8 gig graphics card, and I could pick this up off of AliExpress for 50 bucks. There you go, 150 bucks total. And you may be thinking, well, that's not a great card, it's old, but it still gets the job done. It's a 2048 SP model, and I've showcased this in a number of other builds, and that's going to be the first card that we use. And why are we doing that? Why aren't we going with something more beefier? Well, we have to work within the constraints of the power supply. I think it's a 400 watt Platinum Plus rated power supply. I think the drawback will be is that right here it only has one 6-pin PCI Express power cable. That is the drawback of this power supply. Unless you're going to go through the rigmarole of updating this non-off-the-shelf motherboard power supply connections, etc. You have to do adapters and stuff. You have to work within the constraints of what you have. This card is a 6-pin only, hence why we're using that as one of the tests. The other one we have is this RX 1070 8 gig card that I picked up for 50 bucks used in one of my haul deals. Now, there's a little caveat to this one, is that we'll have to get a small adapter because it uses an 8-pin power on this. I don't technically recommend doing that because you're going to have to run a 4-pin adapter off the 4-pin Molex plug or the SATA power. And you can typically get these adapters off of Amazon for about $6 or so. We'll see if we can get that to work I wouldn't recommend it for long-term use because, you know, it depends on the rails and that 12-volt line for the 4-pin Molex or the SATA. We just don't know how much wattage it's going to be pulling, and it could burn things up, perhaps, potentially. Now, they do sell them, but that doesn't mean you should use them or not. So use that at your own discretion and your own risk. Let's get the RX 580 in here and get to testing some games, and then we'll back-to-back get the test results for the 1070 to see how this works in 2024 and see if it's a good value for your money. Comment below if you like one of the two video cards that I've mentioned, you think it's good for this 150 build, and if you have thoughts about it, or if you still use one of them today. Come on, let's go!
Reference that grid point. We need to secure and hold it. Ready.
We have riflemen taking the field.
Small arms! Territory belongs to the USA! Engaged at the front!
Engineers stand.
What are we looking for? Suspect's male. Was last seen on Dock 27. What's that? Get him! Contact on target.
Ready to move on?
So, my final thoughts on this system, the Z240, $150 gaming PC. Well, let me tell you, I was pretty impressed by this system. You know, just at 1080p, but you know, most people aren't going to go above 1080p, 1440, and their normal everyday gaming sessions. Most people don't really play their games at 4K. Most people, the average person, in my mind, play their games at 1080p or 1440 at most. Because the higher you scale up, the more demanding the titles get, the more demanding they get for the hardware that you need to play them. And that adds up to money real quick. This system impressed me by playing a lot of newer and older titles at 1080p with acceptable frame rates. And what I mean by that is, hey, I didn't notice a lot of stutter, 30 FPS minimums, you know. Between the two cards, the RX 580 8GB card and the 1070 GTX 8GB card, if you can get either one of those for 50 bucks, you'll have yourself a decent gaming solution combined with the Z240 system that I spec'd out and tried here today. Now, if you have a choice of video cards of between $50 when you get that 1070 used, get the 1070 8GB card all day long. Now, why? Because it's going to maintain a little bit higher minimum and maximum frame rates, which will give you a smoother gameplay experience. Not to say that the RX 580 is bad in any respect. You're going to get a slightly better average and a slightly better gaming experience with it. The GTX 1070 versus the RX 580. But either one will serve you quite well at 1080p. So if you can find one of these systems and it's got the NVMe slot and you can upgrade the CPU down the line or put an NVMe in there, and plus one of these two cards that I highlighted for 50 bucks, you've got yourself a decent entry-level gaming PC that can do a lot more than just game if you upgrade the CPU to higher cores down the line. Now, if you still got one of these two video cards I showcased, or even the Z240 system that you game on or use for your daily driver, comment below. I'd like to hear about your stories. So, thanks for watching. Remember this tech.